supplies. Tighten the belt a little bit. This is your bulletin today. It's pretty nice, pretty clean. If you want something with a connection, if you have a prayer request or a praise on something, that should be located in front of your seat. Except for you don't have a front in front of you. In front of your seat there's little connection cards. You can grab one of those and put them in the office as it comes around. The other thing is, Debbie, if you want your, what are we in the second quarter? If you want your quarterly statement for your offering, you can get that in the back at the Connection Center after the service. We're so glad to have you here at church. We're so glad to have our youth upstairs. They're all jacked up. The people who worked are all jacked up, and it's just really awesome. But it's not just our youth who have gotten back from their mission trip. We also have Lindsey Rowland, who I want to come up right now. Lindsey just came back Wednesday night. Thursday morning, yeah, I was going to say. It was later than midnight when we picked you up. So thanks for that. Do you want the back or do you want the non-back? Which one do you want? The back? Okay, great. Awesome. I'm going to let Lindsey talk more than I'm going to talk. I'm just going to ask her some questions. Lindsey, where did you come back from?
I just came back from Paris, France.
I know what all you were thinking. Boy.
Suffering on the mission field.
Yes, yes. And I gave her a hard time the whole time. She's raising money for this. I'm like, really Paris? That's where you want to go. Why Paris, Lindsey?
Well, it's really interesting people say, oh, Paris, why don't we go to a third world country? You're going on vacation. But it's actually a really, really dark spiritual place. It's very much postmodern in that Christianity was here, it left, we're good. So it's a very, very, all of Europe is very atheistic. And the goal of our trip was to go and share our faith. And it's really interesting to think that such a, beautiful Western city, first world country, is struggling so much spiritually. And that's sort of what motivated me.
Yeah, she came back with an interesting set. First of all, tell us about the group you went with, who it was through, some of the members that came with you.
Yeah, I went with Crew, which is formerly Campus Crusade for Christ, which I'm sure a lot of you guys have heard of. It's an organization that works with college students, and so it was all college students. There were 6 students. There was one from Arizona, the rest were from California, and then I was a token Midwesterner. So everything.
Somebody had a
yeah.
Sweet. Cracker Barrel.
Yeah. And then we had 4 staff people, 2 from California, 2 from Arizona as well. And we were just, we all went as students to talk to students there. Because something I'm learning is that a lot of cultures, countries hinge on college students. That's the group of people who are forming themselves and therefore forming the next generation of the country. So that was the goal, to go as college students to talk to college students.
Lindsey also kept a blog as she was there to try to keep people who had supported her with finances and money and prayers and all that, just to keep them updated. If you wanted to read her blog, I'm sure she could give you the email or the address, not the email address, the website. I am technology literate, but I don't know what the deal is. Lindsey, she was talking about it being such a dark place. She came back with a stat, and the stat was, I couldn't believe it. So, give us the stat.
We initiated 397 conversations on one campus, and no one came to know the Lord that we saw.
So I thought of that I instantly wanted to think, I wonder if she thought it was a failure, the whole 5-week trip trying to spread the gospel. And I think that instead of it being a failure, what I thought was it should be a focus. We're talking about one of the most influential cities in the world for the last millennia, and not a single college student wanted to accept Christ. You were able to talk to a lot of kids, a lot of college kids. Tell us about the one individual, the one young man who wanted to leave a mark, let's say.
Yeah, the very first time that we went sharing, we were there with, it's called the Stinters. They're doing the same thing that we did for 5 weeks, only for a whole year. And me and my friend Jacob, we went sharing with a Stinter, Tracy. And we sat down at this table in the cafeteria, and that was a main hub of ministry because we would sit down and, drop the parlez-vous anglais and then, it's really interesting because talking about religion there is a very, very private thing, so we had to try to build up rapport with them. And
that means you speak English.
Yeah, we speak English. Most of
It took me that whole sentence to figure it out.
Most of them said a little, but then you could have a whole conversation with them. But that first day we sat down, and this couple sat across from us, and they pulled out this booklet, and it wasn't the exact same booklet that we had, but we have, crew has materials that explain the gospel, and they had the French gospel booklet, and they got it out and they started laughing at it, and they didn't know that it was us, or like our same group. And so Tracy, who spoke French, said, we're from the same group, what'd you think? And they were like, you're bizarre. So it's very, very dark.
Nailed it.
Nailed it. We went on a little while. We just kind of made small talk with them. The girl was really nice, but the guy was very, very suspicious and very cold. And I would ask him, like, what's your thesis on? And he'd be like, why do you want to know? And I'm like, sorry. But at the end, as we were standing up, he looked me dead in the eye and said, I hope that France has more of an influence on you than you have on France. And it was a very, very humbling moment for me, and it very much fueled my fire in a lot of ways. Like through that experience and many, many others, there was one where we got laughed at just blatantly, just like lots of really interesting persecutions, for lack of a better term, where you wouldn't think that they would be. But this summer taught me a lot about the sovereignty of God, and that the definition of successful evangelism is stepping out in faith and trusting God to do the rest, and trusting in the power of just speaking the gospel, because that in and of itself is all the power of everything, And so the Lord really taught me that it wasn't a failure, that we were planting seeds and that He's going to raise up a harvest. And I kept thinking about in Revelation it talks about every tribe, tongue, and nation around the throne, and I am 100% certain that there will be French spoken that day. And I'm very blessed to have been honored to have taken a part in that. And bringing people to Christ, even if I didn't necessarily see them make the decision. I learned a lot spiritually myself. I got to talk to a lot of people who practiced Islam, or a lot of Muslims immigrate to Paris, so that was a really, really eye-opening, really cool experience for me. And ultimately, I just learned that every single person on this planet will stand before the Lord, and how much would we have to hate someone to not go and tell them about Jesus, the only thing that stands between them, the only form of righteousness. So it was definitely an honor to be able to speak the gospel this summer in a place where not many people are going.
Last one, two-part question. Your best part of your experience and the hardest part of your experience.
Oh, man. I think the best part was, we were in a very beautiful city. Like, we're not going to deny that. So it was really neat to see that city. And also, kind of just harkening back to what I just said about just learning to trust the Lord in a way that I hadn't before. And understanding that God is a massive God, more than we could ever fathom, and that His heart is for the nations. And so I got to see the God that I had experienced, in Bucyrus and Plymouth and Westerville, my little bubbles of safety. I got to experience Him on a global level, and that was just mind-blowing and more than I could ever fathom. And it makes me very hungry to go do more. And I think the hardest part was just how dark it is, and to know, like I said, that every person will stand in front of the Lord at the end of their life. And some of them are just okay with not having it. They say, it's not for me, that's good for you, or they get hostile. And it's really heartbreaking to see people with just such blatant disregard for the truth. As well as, interestingly enough, the language barrier was really hard as well, because there are multiple people who we ran into who, there was two girls that we met that spoke Mandarin, and they spoke very, very little English, enough to get out that they never heard who Jesus Christ was, but we couldn't explain it to them because we didn't speak the language. So that was really, really humbling and really, really hard. So I think just like praying for workers to be raised up who speak the language, as well as who are willing to go and be laughed at and be teased about going on vacation part was just feeling like we were running up against a brick wall, but knowing that the Lord could knock anything down.
And I would think that'd be the hardest thing, knowing that this is such a dark place and still having the strength and courage to go out and do that. But it says in Acts 1:8, for those who have had the Spirit put upon them, He will give them the strength to go spread the gospel to Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, and throughout all the nations. So, Lindsey, we are so proud of you, and we're so blessed to have you as part of our church. I'm blessed to have her as my sister-in-law.
Yes, and thank you all so much for everyone who supported me through finances, through prayer. It was just, I appreciate it more than I could ever articulate, and we definitely, the gospel was spread this summer, and you were a massive part of that, so I thank you.
Well, we're all happy to have you back, but no one more than your mother. Thank you, Lindsey. Thank you very much. All right, if I can have you all stand again, we're going to do another song that the youth really liked. We've done it, I think, once before here at church. It's a Matt Redman song. It's not getting any lower.